SCP-3000.
Already, I am looking at this thing, questioning my decisions.
We've discussed cognitohazards a few times before, anomalous effects that can alter an individual's mind or way of thinking, and SCP-3000 itself is a cognitohazard. There are many SCPs that can kill or maim or horrify humans, but there aren't that many that can destroy what it means to be human.
Yeah, this one
And
was.
that makes SCP-3000 pretty unique.
Someday soon, perhaps in 40 years, there will be no one alive who has ever known me. That's when I will be truly dead. When I exist in no one's memory. I thought a lot about how someone very old is the last living individual to have known some person or cluster of people. When that person dies, the whole cluster dies, too. Vanishes from the living memory. I wonder who that person will be for me. Whose death will make me truly dead. Irvin D. Yalom. Alright, this is Exploring the SCP Foundation, SCP-3000. I will be honest, I don't know how to say this name. I will say this is by the Exploring series. Now, of course, what I do know about this creature is that it is a eel, supposedly, and it is used in the biggest example that I know of is SCP-231, which is the Bride of the Scarlet King. This is used as a uh, thing to help her forget about the things that are done to her in order to basically let them redo it again so that she does not give birth to basically the end of the world. Is the best way I can put this so YouTube doesn't do anything against my channel this early on. I'm a good guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, I say we get right on into this.
SCP-3000.
Already, I am looking at this thing, questioning my decisions. That's what I'm up against. The Loch Ness Monster's giant, rotund, creepy pasta cousin? Of course.
Anantashesha. The SCP Foundation is aware of a number of entities that could be considered gods, or godlike in some way.
Yep.
Some of these are actually contained by them, while others,
Including, from what I'm hearing, actual God. We've had Cain and Abel, actual God. Apparently, there's Garfield, which, if you have no idea what I'm mentioning, go look at my reaction to the kids of the Scarlet King right after this video. Or, right up here, is the full series that you can react to.
are uncontainable, either existing outside of our physical dimension or for some other reason. For practically all of these, though, the Foundation treats them with extreme caution, as they represent little more than threats to our existence. There is an exception, however, in SCP-3000. Its status as something godlike is debatable, which we'll discuss later, but it is a rare example of a thaumiel entity, an anomalous creature
Really?
that the Foundation utilizes to help their operations.
Yep.
Simply put, SCP-3000 is a massive eel located in the Bay of Bengal near India. 3000's full size is unknown, but is believed to be between 600 and 900 kilometers long.
Please, somebody give me the miles. I will say, I like whoever did this, made it look realistic. I like this. This is cool. If we can get more realistic looking SCPs, I would love to see what these guys would look like, especially my newfound son, 999. I would love that. What I love about this photo is you see it cut off. It's not curved, because if it was curved, you would see it. No, it shoots out straight that way. Then what we see is it emerging from the dark here to then go here, and you see it turn there, come here, and then it shoots out back that way. Alright, that should tell you how this thing is wrapping around back there and probably in front of the camera as well to give you a size comparison.
Ending in a head 2.5 meters in diameter. 3000 is not necessarily contained per se, but since it rarely moves, the Foundation simply patrols the region of the bay where it's located and prevents any diving expeditions in the area.
That's smart.
It was discovered in 1971 after a number of Bangladeshi fishermen went missing after drifting near the Indian coast, and the Foundation stepped in to investigate.
Okay, there is a very important date there, 1971. Immediately it brings attention in my head of kind of what the culture in most of America was at that point. So something's telling me that it wouldn't be long before we started experimenting drug like stuff with this, which of course we do know that later on that the uh, amnesia stuff will be brought from this thing.
Its biology is not well understood by the Foundation, but they hypothesize that it doesn't actually require any sustenance in order to continue living, but it is carnivorous. It's unknown exactly what happens to prey it consumes, but during feeding, 3000 excretes a thin layer of a viscous substance that the Foundation has dubbed Y909.
Y909.
Its existence as a massive eel, hundreds of kilometers long, would certainly classify it as an SCP alone, much like SCP-169. But that's only the beginning of its anomalous traits. We've discussed cognitohazards a few times before, anomalous effects that can alter an individual's mind or way of thinking, and SCP-3000 itself is a cognitohazard. Direct observation of it will result in head pain, paranoia, fear, panic, and memory loss or alteration, and even being in a certain vicinity of the eel can result in these effects.
Okay, it makes sense actually for it to have these. I believe there was something about people in the early days when a person would be on a ship too long, they would slowly start going mad. A lot of the time, it was due to sickness. Sometimes there was tainted food. Sometimes they would be drunk or would have some other type of illness or something going on, and they would slowly go mad. Or if somebody was doing a very strained, I can't say the word, labor intensive job, they would uh, go a little bit insane. And so that's where we ended up getting a lot of tales of sea monsters, as well as them not understanding what it is that they were seeing. Biggest example is a lot of people now speculate that the very infamous or very famous creature, the Loch Ness Monster, was instead the package of a whale. And so it having these effects of madness, of all this stuff, paranoia, it makes sense, especially because if this creature was originally found in 1971, it was probably there way before, and you could possibly make the argument that this thing is way older and use real life recounts of sailors and all, and have this be the reason why.
These effects are further described in a log discussing the initial discovery and encounter with SCP-3000. A team descended in a submersible, and all of them were feeling uneasy, but one in particular began sweating profusely, stating that he was missing something, but he couldn't figure out what. He begins to act more erratically as they descend, expressing doubts about what exactly he's supposed to do down there. Other members of the team began to express similar feelings. When they finally saw the body of the eel, the erratic individual began whimpering and had to be sedated as he muttered the word "no" over and over.
What's strange is that sounds a lot like how Abel, I believe it wasn't Cain, it was Abel, when he came into contact with the Gate Guardian. When I reacted to SCP-001, the Gate Guardian, when he got within a certain kilometer, he began saying no over and over and over, and they had to uh, actually cancel that experiment with him due to him just being in a certain proximity, him breaking down, saying that he wasn't supposed to be there, and him apologizing directly to the angel.
When they finally approached the head, several other members were complaining about feeling hazy, unsure of what they were doing here. The captain wrote it off as nitrogen intoxication. SCP-3000 turned its head to look at them, and the sedated member began barking and shrieking, claiming that it was in its head, until he smashed his face into one of the potholes and they had to ascend due to the cracks. He had mortally injured himself, and as he lay dying, he said, "There's nothing, nothing, nothing." Despite this,
That oddly sounds like him both saying that 3000 doesn't exist, but also a mention about probably the afterlife. Um, it's actually been a comment that the afterlife in the SCP universe is actually very bad, which is why I made the idea of SCP-049, the Plague Doctor, him wanting to cure death, him try to make unkillable, always alive people, which instead turns into very aggressive style zombies, which end up being put down by the SCP Foundation. And once again, this picture here helps kind of bring forth my idea of this thing being very old and it being the creature in a lot of the tales about sea creatures. But now, of course, we have a SCP number for it.
Incident, a diving expedition was ordered to personally assess the creature and investigate the source of the thick gray fluid that had been observed around its head. 3 members of MTF Orion 9, Kingfishers, were sent down. The water was dark and cold, which was to be expected, but other problems began almost immediately as the team becomes confused over their call signs, both mixing up who has what designation, and one of them even being confused by the word designation. The leader also addresses someone back at the command station who had been dead for 2 years.
Really?
Regardless, command tells the team to continue towards the entity, but each of them are completely confused about where they are. As they continue approaching, one of the members begins to utter ominous phrases concerning oblivion and dark eyes.
What is that?
SCP-3000 begins to rapidly approach them, and their radios go silent for 30 seconds. When they come back, it's clear that the team is in chaos, and one of the members has been eaten.
Yep, that's what I figured.
The leader seems to have completely forgotten who he is, where he is, and what he's doing. He soon gets eaten as well.
Yep.
Only one of the team remains, and he still seems to be somewhat coherent, claiming that it's extremely difficult to form thoughts while near 3000. He says that it's coiled inside of his head, and that it's just sitting there in front of him. He sees
the way he's talking about it makes it seem like this is a psychic style. If you've ever seen, the best way I can put it from movies is when somebody is unable to move, almost like a Charles Xavier, unable to move. He's in your head. You can see him. You can talk to him. You're moving freely within your head, but he's just sitting there. And instead, if he wanted to, he removes himself out of your head. You completely forget about him, and that's when he would strike. If that makes sense.
Fluid seeping out of its skin around its head, and he goes to retrieve a sample, sending it up towards the surface. He finishes by saying not to send anyone else out here. His breathing could be heard over his radio for 3 days before ceasing. I mentioned at the start that SCP-3000 is a thaumial entity, meaning it somehow assists the SCP Foundation in their operations. And you may be wondering how a giant eel that messes with your head does so. The answer is in the gray fluid excreted from the entity, called the Y909 compound.
Yep.
The Foundation utilizes a large number of amnestics during their work, chemicals that cause an individual to forget certain things. These chemicals are vital for keeping the secrecy of the Foundation and the SCPs intact, as well as helping many SCP personnel cope with things they have experienced. For a number of years, the Foundation's amnestics were rudimentary, breaking down fairly quickly in storage, causing a number of side effects, and had often questionable efficacy overall.
Yeah.
The inclusion of the Y909 compound has greatly increased the stability and effectiveness of the Foundation's amnestics, however, allowing them to store for much longer, a significant decrease in side effects, an increase in suggestibility and memory clearance, and little to no intrusive memories years after their use.
This now raises another question, at least for me. Of course, I'm coming off of the Scarlet King reactions. I'm coming off of the children specifically. Of course, within the children, we get told that that's where a lot of these get used. I'm now wondering why no one had the idea of giving it to Dr. Montauk in order to have him forget the Scarlet King entirely. Because he would later leave the SCP Foundation as a researcher and would instead become a child of the Scarlet King. The cult, not the actual children, I should state.
The Foundation has come to completely rely on the Y909 compound, with no means to synthetically reproduce it, and so the ATZAC protocol is introduced. The protocol is simple enough. It involves deliberately feeding a sedated D-class to SCP-3000, which causes it to excrete the Y909 compound. A specialized team of deep-sea divers then approach the entity within 2.5 hours after feeding, during which its cognitohazard effects are lessened.
They quite literally spike it. I just realized. I was like, why is the D-class sedated? It's because when it eats the D-class, it's going to get the drugs that are within it. I hate the fact that it works and that it gets the results it does. But at the same time, it's really messed up. But at the same time, it would be more messed up if they try synthetically doing it, because when they synthetically do it, there's a higher chance of killing.
Collect as much as they can of the fluid and return to the surface. The rest of the SCP-3000 report concerns 2 doctors, a researcher, Dr. Krishnamurthy, and his staff clinical psychologist, Dr. Manava. The psychologist was assigned to the researcher after he attempted to exit out of the SCP-3000 monitoring submarine without diving equipment. The researcher begins discussing how he feels tired, and his body is beginning to feel disconnected from his mind. He's forgetting things about his work and his life, and he's been having dreams featuring people he doesn't recognize, and places he's never been. It's clear that his proximity to 3000 is greatly affecting his memories, as he is unsure if he's even married, or if he has children, despite having 5 of them.
Jesus.
He does see 3000 in his mind, however, and at this point he begins discussing Anantashesha, the king of serpents in Hinduism, that lies beneath the god Vishnu in the cosmos. He recalls that his mother told him once that when the light of the universe had gone out, Anantashesha would be all that is left, past the end of time.
It sounds a lot like Yorgamander. I know somebody's going to be like, you said that wrong. I can't pronounce words right today. I do apologize. That is strictly on me. but the world serpent. It sounds a lot like that in a way. Um, but it, I have a feeling I know where they're going to try to go, saying that this could be the serpent that he's talking about. That when everything is gone, this will be all that's left. And especially if there is a chance that it doesn't really need to eat in order to uh, actually continue.
He believes that SCP-3000 is Anantashesha,
Yeah.
a god that exists across all of time simultaneously. He says, in defiance of the nothingness that comes after this, all of this, there is Anantashesha. There's a chance that my memories might live on, that I might be remembered like the memories I've seen have been through me. I don't have proof of this, but when I looked into its eyes and saw what it showed me, I was afraid. I'm merely a mediocre man, Anand. This was a fear that I have refused to acknowledge for years, a fear of irrelevance, that no one will know who I am when I die, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of my life being meaningless, afraid of being alone, afraid of dying. There is a terror within me that I cannot reconcile, Anand. I won't lie to you and tell you that the maw of the Naga does not terrify me as well, but between this and the infinite dark I have gazed into, I have made up my mind. Dr. Krishnamurthy was held in containment for 2 days before being released. 3 hours later, he approaches the airlock to the submarine while weeping and prepares to open it. Proximity alarms begin to blare as SCP-3000 approaches the submarine. The doctor puts on a diving suit and exits the submarine before anyone can stop him. 3000 approaches him and opens its jaws wide. The last thing the doctor says is that he was wrong, and sobs as the eel consumes him. The rest of the crew begin preparing to carry out the ATSAC protocol. We're given some excerpts from Dr.
Him saying he was wrong, it is confusing to me because does he mean that it's wrong about how he viewed the eel? Is he wrong about how the SCP Foundation is viewing this? Is he wrong about his research? There's so much there. And it makes me even more confused on why they suit up to do the procedure when it's very obvious he wasn't drugged. He was under the influence of the eel. He wasn't sedated. So I'm a little confused there.
Manava's journal, in which he discusses that he now has to figure out why Dr. Krishnamurthy became suicidal, and how to prevent it from happening to any of the other personnel. He writes that he's not a very religious man, and doesn't believe SCP-3000 to be anything other than an anomalous eel. He racks his brain thinking about his father and his teachings of Hinduism, but cannot recall much, although he blames this less on the eel and more on his own willful forgetfulness.
Yeah.
He was allowed to look through Krishnamurthy's effects and keep any that he wished, and so for some reason he decides to take a statue of the god Ganesh. Manava is aware that his continual proximity to SCP-3000 is draining his memories, both from his youth and more recently. He makes an attempt to learn some Hindu poems and songs, but can't seem to memorize any of them. We're given a memorandum from the site director that elaborates.
With how this thing hunts, parts of me want to say that he's probably less of a material hunter and probably more of a memory style hunter. Almost like how I think the name was Abracadabra or Abra from Pokemon, or Gengar. Gengar, I think, is actually the one I'm thinking of more. that eats the memories, but I think Gengar does it with dreams. Uh, but yeah, I think that's what's happening here. It's more feeding on these memories until it drives someone insane, and thus is able to get uh, the actual body at that point.
Operates somewhat on the Y909 compound and the ATZAC protocol. The Foundation originally believed it to be blood, but it's more akin to a prion slurry. Prolonged exposure to the compound is pretty similar to prolonged exposure to 3000. Some of the biologists believe that when SCP-3000 consumes a human, it is breaking down some part of their brains that makes them sapient, and the residual substance from this process is Y909. They also found that SCP-3000 is not digesting these humans at all, and their bodies are still inside of it. In other words, SCP-3000 is capable of breaking down and devouring the human mind, causing them to forget their own existence.
See, that's exactly what I was thinking. It feeds not on really the human, but the mind.
And the Foundation is purposefully encouraging this in order to create powerful amnestics. The Ethics Committee and the Classification Committee are looking for ways to make this more tolerable, but since the Foundation really depends on these amnestics, the process continues.
Yep.
The final log is another journal page from Dr. Manava. He has been spending a great amount of time studying the effects of SCP-3000, but still has no idea what would cause a sane man to step out of an airlock into its mouth. Earlier that week, he had knocked over a picture of him and his family, and found that there was writing on the other side, with his name, his wife's name, and his daughter's name. However, the writing was in Dr. Krishnamurthy's hand, not his own. This puzzled Manava, and he began to be stressed by the uncertainty of it. Finally, he went into the personnel archives and discovered the truth. The woman was in fact Krishnamurthy's first wife, and the girl was one of his daughters. Manava had believed that they were his wife and daughter, but more than that, he had memories of them that he now realized were in fact Krishnamurthy's memories. This realization causes him to finally understand exactly what SCP-3000 does. It breaks down and destroys human consciousness, the spark of thought that makes us unique and what we believe to be a soul, and then scatters it. It leaves a husk behind that is nothing more than electrical signals passing through matter that will someday become inert. He writes, "If even I can't remember myself, how can I expect anyone else to remember me? I have forgotten my own life, and I am strangely apathetic at this revelation."
I will say that's not what I thought that's not where I thought I was going. I thought that we were heading on the idea of it feeds on yours, and then in order to make you think that's not it, basically does a synthetic. But instead of having the memories right, it gives you the memories of someone else, somebody that's already digested. That's where I thought we were going.
I will fade into the darkness, as thousands before me have, and thousands after me will. No one will care, as I am forgotten. I do not despair for my own sake, but for us all. You and I, we will all face obliteration. I am not important. You are not important. Vast droplets of irrelevancy, stretching eons in the sea of time. We may fight against it, but our enemy is inevitability. I do not think that the eel is Anantashesha. I don't think it would matter if it was. What is clear to me now, as I feel myself coming apart, is not that the eel is some mythological creature, or divine serpent. Perhaps it's just a primitive creature that eluded us, holding no malice. Perhaps it really is a primordial deity, harboring resent beneath the surface. The eel is not the harbinger of my demise, or humanity's doom. The eel is not the end of all things. It only shows us what the end looks like. And in spite of everything we might believe, every ideal we hold or providence we pray for, I know this much is true for all of us. Our end will be a forgotten one. Dr. Manava was later discovered near the airlock after consuming a significant amount of raw Y909. Unresponsive, he was moved to Site-151 for analysis. SCP-3000 is a dark SCP, and the concept of destroying memories and human consciousness makes what would otherwise just be an enormous eel much more interesting. Existential dread affects many people from time to time throughout their life, and it's not unusual to be concerned with who will remember you, what will they remember you for, and ultimately, your purpose here. Dr. Manava was probably right, that SCP-3000 is not a deity that exists throughout all of time.
I don't think so either. I feel like it's not a deity. It wouldn't make sense for it to. Especially because where this is located at, it would probably cause a few issues, especially with other SCPs. Obviously, I need to get into some of the verses I keep saying, but I feel like this one and something like Gate Guardian, they would clash heads in a way.
But it is certainly a powerful entity. There are many SCPs that can kill, or maim, or horrify humans, but there aren't that many that can destroy what it means to be human.
Yeah, this one was...
And that makes SCP-3000 pretty unique.
Someday soon, perhaps in 40 years, there will be no one alive who has ever known me. That's when I will be truly dead. When I exist in no one's memory. I thought a lot about how someone very old is the last living individual to have known some person or cluster of people. When that person dies, the whole cluster dies, too. Vanishes from the living memory. I wonder who that person will be for me. Whose death will make me truly dead. Irvin D. Yalom. This one brings up so much of a phobia, truly. Especially for me. I think it's called the Lanophobia, the fear of death. If anyone's ever heard of it, it is a very messed up thing where death is something you can't outrun and you don't know what happens after it. But this one brings up a different part of that. It is more of the true death, when someone will forget you. When you die, someone will still remember you, but for how long? It starts a secondary clock. And that is something very messed up. And I think that's one of the major allures to this. Originally, the allure to me was how this thing was able to make the amnesia for the SCP Foundation. And now, watching this, I realize is a much darker tale. I want to see if there's anything after this. Doesn't seem like there is, just a Patreon. The Exploring series, another great video. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be a link down in the description. You can come over here, hit like, hit subscribe, hit this little bell icon, and turn it to all so you get all notifications from me. And while you're over here at my channel, please do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon, share this video around, and you see down there? Yeah, down there, there's a comment section. Comment down what it is you'd like to see next. It can be SCP, horror-related, VHS tape, FNAF, the Walton Files, anything at all that I can react to. Because I'm a horror channel. I like reacting to horror stuff. Obviously, this one was darker in a mental type of way that I didn't know. I was not ready for. I do apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's been Killer Bear. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have, right here is another video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Right here is how you can subscribe using my little channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!